In this video, we're going to talk about how to prepare and file 1099 forms for your business. My name is Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA, and I filed a lot of 1099 forms in my life. I do that we do that, our firm, for most of our business clients, and we've used all sorts of tools to do that. And the one that have enjoyed the most is called Tax 1099 by ZenWorks. So this is the actual system that we use in our firm to file 1099 forms for our clients when they don't do their own forms or they delegate the work over to us. Now, as a business owner, you can file your own 1099s. You don't need an accountant for that. Now, of course, as an accountant myself, I would strongly recommend you get an accountant involved, especially if you're not really sure what gets reported on 1099, or if your books are a mess and you have to get your books cleaned up first prior to figuring out the amount that needs to be reported on the 1099, or which payments are included in the 1099. That's something that you might need a professional for. Long story short, a 1099 NEC, which will be the focus for this video, that's going to be for when a business pays in an individual for professional services. So for labor, subcontracted labor, as a non-employee. When you're an employee, you process a paycheck and you take out taxes and you file a W-2 form. But when they're non-employees, they're contractors or subcontractors or independent contractors, that's where you as a business have the obligation to report to the IRS and some states how much money you pay to that person, as long as it's $600 or more. If you pay someone $600 or less in the whole year, aggregate all the payments, then you don't have to include it in the 1099. But if you pay any individual for services as a contractor, independent contractor, $600 or more, then you as a business are obligated to file a 1099 form. This video will be useful for you if you're a business owner doing your own forms, or if you're an accounting professional that's looking for a tool to help your clients. I will walk you through the whole process, and then at the very end, I'll kind of talk to you about the different options. There are free options for business owners, and you just pay per form, and there are paid options for accounting firms and larger businesses that need a little bit more robust user workflow type tools. So we'll talk about that towards the end. Anyway, let's get right to it. So the first step is you start creating a free Tax 1099 account. You put your email address, you put your password, you click on accept, I'm not a robot, and then click on get started for free. Or if you want to use your Google account, your Apple account, or if you use Xero, you can sign in using those accounts. So we're just going to click on get started for free and get the account started. And then after answering all the questions, you click on next. And you will be on the home screen to start doing your work. So when you first log in into Tax 1099, you're going to see your dashboard. You're going to see on the left-hand side where you have all the different options and all the features that Tax 1099 has. For example, you can do your FinCEN BOI reporting from here. If you go into forms, this is where you're actually going to do your 1099s or any of the other forms that are supported. Then you're going to go into payers. These are going to be the list of all your payers. Then the recipients, these are the people that receive the 1099s or whichever form you're filing through Tax 1099. Then you have imports, so you can actually import from spreadsheets, from QuickBooks Desktop, from QuickBooks Online, from multiple platforms. That way you don't have to do duplicate data entry. Then your history is going to show you any 1099s or other forms that you have already filed. And actually in this particular case, anything that you have paid into Tax 1099. Then EFTPS, if you want to connect your EFTPS account and do payments from here, you can do that as well. All your reportings, and then you have your API. So if you're connecting with third-party tools, and this is more for you to work with your IT people to see if you want to synchronize any data automatically, so you don't have to do manual imports through spreadsheets or something like that. You can get into that. We're not going to discuss that too much into detail, but just understand that it's there. And of course, any knowledge base articles and support articles, you're going to see it right there on the support section. Okay, I'm going to go back into the dashboard, and we're going to walk you through the most simple way to start your 1099 process. Now, the first step, I generally recommend creating the actual company that's issuing the forms or the 1099s in this case. So that's going to be a payer. So you're going to click right there where it says get started. And that's going to send you to the screen where you can create the payer for the next time. You will notice that it'll ask you multiple questions. One is Is this a one-time one payer you want to create? Do you have multiple payers? In this case, let's say you're an accountant and you do 1099s for multiple clients. You can upload all your clients. If you're a single business using Tax 1099, you can click on add one time and that's it. And of course, if you're going to be doing some of the API integration that we discussed earlier, you would pick that third option or integrate with your existing system. So we're actually going to show you both. I'm going to show you how to enter it manually and also how to import information from QuickBooks, so that's actually really important. So we're going to go backwards and just create the payer manually. So I'm going to click on add one time and then click on next. And then I'm going to choose whether it's an individual or a business. Of course, individuals that have businesses can also file 1099s, but most of the time it is going to be a legal entity, a C Corp, an S Corp, that sort of thing. Then we click on next, and then you're going to put all the information about the business. So I'm going to put just a bunch of random numbers here. Let's say that's the tax ID of the business, and this is called Hector's Taco Truck LLC. And then we're going to have Hector at tacotrucks.com, and then a phone number. I'll just put here my office phone number, and then I'm going to click on next. So that's like kind of the first steps. Then you want to put the address of the business, of course. And once you're done entering that, you're going to click on next, and then it's going to ask you for your state tax ID. So this matters if your state requires you to file a 1099 for the state. For example, the example I'm doing here, Florida doesn't require it, but assuming that it does, you'll put your tax ID for the state, whatever that is. And if there's client IDs and maybe like a DBA or disregarded entity name, you can keep track of that as well. So you're going to put that information in there and then click on next. Another way to import a payer list is when you went back to the first page where it asks you to either do add one time or upload bulk Excel. You can click here where it says download a template. And then that's going to be basically a spreadsheet, an Excel file that you can open in Excel or Google Sheets. And then essentially you're going to fill in the information in here, and then you're going to import that in. So once you have all this information filled in your spreadsheet, you essentially just save the spreadsheet, and then you're going to click on next. You're going to drag and drop the spreadsheet or click on the file here and pick it from your downloaded files. Then you're going to click on next. It will tell you whether or not it's been validated, if all the information is correct, and then you will be done. So now when I go back into payers, you're going to see the payer that I either created manually or I imported through the batch import feature. Again, if you're a single business, you will only be creating one manually, but if you have multiple entities and you're happy to have this information already in a spreadsheet, I would strongly recommend to just import it, save yourself a whole bunch of time. Now from the screen, again, if you have multiple entities that you file forms for, you can search them by tax ID or by name, especially if there's a pretty big list here. You get some detailed information right here, addresses, phone numbers, emails, all that sort of thing. When you click on action, you can generate a report for them. You can deactivate them. You can show the whole tax ID if you want to. You can edit or delete. Same thing if you choose several here in batch on the left-hand side. If you choose them, then once you choose it in here, you can choose what you want to do. So you want to deactivate them in batch, delete them in batch, generate a report in batch, or assign a particular user. Now, we're going to discuss later on about the different versions of Tax 1099. So there's a version that if you have, for example, an accounting firm and you want certain employees to be able to access to certain clients, that sort of thing, that's the importance of having the ability to assign to a user and create workflows and that sort of thing. Most people, if you are the business owner kind of following this video along, you don't have to worry about that too much, but that's just important for you to know depending on whether you are managing multiple entities or a single entity. That multiple user concept is actually really important. If you click on show TIN, it shows the tax ID because by default it hides it, it only shows the last four. So now I'm going to go back to the dashboard just to kind of show you. This is the screen that you see at the very beginning. Because we already have a payer built in, the dashboard looks different because now you're sort of closer to filing, so you're going to have a lot more information here. Where number one, the same three buttons you saw before, add a payer, add a recipient, create a form, they're still there, but the icons are actually much smaller. You get an overview of any forms you've already submitted, they're ready to submit, or whether or not they have been rejected by the IRS. one of the really, really great things I love about Tax 1099, it's having really great visibility about what has been approved, what has been rejected. Because if you've done 1099s before, sometimes you get certain information wrong from the contractor, and then the form gets rejected and you have to go back and fix that. And then you're going to have a list of all the forms down there in the bottom. There's no forms yet, but you're going to see the list right there. So the next step obviously is we got the payer in, and now we have to either create a recipient or create a form. You can do it in both ways, and it really is up to you which way you want to do it. I'm going to first create a recipient manually, then I'm going to show you how to import a bunch of recipients, and then we're going to show you how to do that from the form directly. So I'm going to click on recipient, and this would be like your contractors. These will be the people that you give the 1099 forms to. Up here in the top, you can select the payer. Again, if you're working with multiple payers, you can choose the payer up there, but that kind of lets you know, who does this recipient belong to. Then we're going to click on recipient, and essentially we are going to select which entity this recipient is for, which is Hector's Taco Truck. Then I'm going to click on next, and then I'm going to start with the one time, and then we're going to show you how to import multiple at the same time. So we're going to go to one time, click next, and then you can either do a W-9 request or a W-8 request. The most common one is your W-9 request. You could also skip that by not checking anything and clicking on next. So you kind of have to understand the workflow here. So if you are a business owner and we're close to the end of January and you have to file these things, you probably already requested all the W-9s. You have them in front of you. You have a spreadsheet. You have the documentation. And you don't have to go out and tell the contractor that they need to send you the information. So a W-9 request would actually send information to the contractor where the contractor can fill this out. So I'm going to skip that because I'm actually going to enter the information, but you do have the option to request the contractor to give you that information. So I'm going to click next and then click on individual. So let's say the contractor I'm creating, it's a person. And then I'm going to put their name here. Then once you enter all their information, you click on next and then their address. And then after you do that, you click on next. And if you're going to have any correspondence and you want to change the who it goes to, or maybe create a client ID or choose whether or not any correspondence will be in English or Spanish. Like for example, I have tons of clients where most of the contractors speak Spanish only. It's very, very useful, right? So you can send any correspondence or any emails in their native language. Then we'll click on next. And it tells you Mary Smith has been successfully added. And that's it. That's essentially how you create one by one. Now, if you want to bring in a bunch of contractors, you click on add another recipient. Then we're going to click on next. And then we're going to select upload bulk Excel. And I'm going to download the template. That's always useful. And here's the template. All the information that you need for that contractor will need to be filled in. So let's say I happen to have another spreadsheet that I'm going to copy and paste the information from. You go ahead and prepare that using the provided template so you can import easily. Okay, so let's say I prepared my spreadsheet. I have all the information about all the contractors, business and personal, whatever it happens to be. Again, maybe I copy and paste it from some other data, or maybe I just manually entered it. Really doesn't matter. We're going to go ahead and import all this stuff in here. So we're going to come in here, go to bulk Excel upload, click on next, select the file that we are bringing information from, click on next. No errors. All the errors have been imported. There we go. And then we're good to go. So now when I click on recipients, now I get to see all of my recipients. These are all the individuals that I'm going to create 1099s for that came from the spreadsheet import. Okay, so now after you already created your payer, now you created your recipients, now you're ready to create your 1099s. So we're going to click here as forms. By default, it's showing the 1099s just because that's kind of like the bulk of the work that we do here. But when you click on create single form, you're actually going to see that there's a whole slew of different tax forms that you can use with ZenWork Tax 1099. It's called Tax 1099 because they started with just 1099s. But as you go back down here, you see all sorts of different forms that you can file. I know that if you're an accountant, you're like, super excited about this. And this is something that got me very excited a few years ago when they started adding all the extra forms. Because in our firm, we use Tax 1099 to create all sorts of forms and corrections to forms. So it's really, really useful for us. I remember during the pandemic where we had to do all the forms that had to do with the special tax credits that we were requesting, where we had to do a lot of corrections on 941 forms for payroll. We leveraged tax 1099 quite a bit for 941Xs. Anytime that we have to make corrections to W-2s, we use a W-2C form here. And anytime we have like companies that pay mortgage interest to other companies or that need to report interest income and all sorts of things that most standard accounting software doesn't do, and quite frankly, my tax software doesn't do either. We really leverage Tax 1099 for this. But let's get back to what we're working with, which is the Tax 1099 NEC, which is a non-employment compensation, which is the context of everything that we're creating. So we select the the 1099 NEC form, and then we click on next. And then it's time to just create the form. Now, you can manually add, obviously the information about the payers. We're gonna obviously select it from our list that's already there, because we went through the process of editing it, creating it prior. So we're not gonna click there on add and create a new payer. So we're not gonna go that route. We already have the payer in there. So all we have to do is select it from my list, add it in there, and it brings the information in there. And one thing that's really interesting too is that most people will create all their 1099s for all their contractors in one sitting. But with ZenWork Tax 1099, you can actually do them in groups. So you can do a few one day and a few another day. You actually don't have to do all in one shot. So I have a lot of clients that just basically do them as the W-9s come in. That way, at least they start getting some work done ahead of time. So once the information is there about the payer, the company that issued the payments, then the next question is, who is my recipient? So you can simply just click on that, pick the recipient, and they will pre-fill their information for you. Okay, or you can click on add and then go through the manual adding process. So what I like about that is you have full workflow to select from the current database or create new ones or even edit them. So if you notice that some information was wrong, maybe the tax ID was wrong, or a name was misspelled, or an address was changed. That happens all the time, right? Address changes. You just go in there and you edit it on the fly. So I love that. Okay, then you're going to go up and fill in the most important information, which is what is the reportable amount for the 1099. And again, you can also import these, another important piece of information here, but we're showing you the manual workflow, the sort of the one-by-one workflow. So let's say for this one is 50,000, and that's how much we're reporting to the IRS for 1099 total compensation for the year. You can go back and check if there's any tax being withheld or if any of these boxes applied. Of course, you would put that information in there. If there is a state that you have to file as well, you would pick the state. For example, I can pick Florida here, but Florida doesn't require reporting for 1099 because Florida doesn't have state income tax. And that's also true for Texas. And I think a few other states don't have state income tax. But obviously, based on your state, you would have to make sure that if you have to withhold in the state or if you have to report for that state, make sure that you put that information in there. So it's all in one shot. You would put that information for the state as well. And the place where you put the state income, it's right there in that bottom box. Then we click on next. And it says you did it. You just added the form 1099. Now keep in mind, this hasn't been filed yet. Okay, I just created the form. That's it. So when I go into forms, now this form is something that I can search or find here. So if I pick my form 1099 NEC, now it shows up as a creative form. And let me just pick the payer here. So it is a creative form. It hasn't been filed yet. There's multiple things that you can do at this point, which is to choose the delivery system. So you can do USPS mail. Tax 1099 will literally print the 1099, put it in an envelope, and ship it to the person. You can also do e-delivery, and you can do either or both, which basically just emails the contractor their 1099. You can do TIN matching, and there is an extra fee for TIN matching, but it's really important because it's going to save you tons of headache when it comes to dealing with the wrong tax ID, not matching the name, getting rejections, and that sort of thing. And then you get the schedule date, basically letting you know when is this scheduled to be sent. Now, if I click on actions, then this is where I can do my real-time TIN matching, and it will let you know which way you want to do this. So we can do real-time TIN matching, and the system will, Tax 1099 will go in and match the TIN for you, whatever the price is at the time, and this is could be subject to change, but right now it's showing that it's 37 cents per tax ID, and you can also do submit form now. So I'll submit the form, but only if the TIN matches, which is actually really interesting. So we go to submit form, I review the information, click OK, and then I love transparent pricing. So this will tell you based on what you ask for, this will be the price for this one form. So you're paying $2.90 for e-filing the 1099. Also worth mentioning, for TIN matching or TIN verification, you can either pay 37 cents for 1 to 2 day matching or $1 for real-time immediate matching. Then there's the printing fee, so that's to print it, put it in an envelope, pay for the stamp, all that stuff. This is the fee to get it electronically delivered. And then if there's anything else, any state filing or any additional tax, because I assume that some states charge sales tax for 1099s. In Florida, I haven't seen that, and then you will click on Pay Now. Now, once you click on Pay Now, if you don't have sufficient balance because you haven't entered a credit card information to pay, you simply click on Pay using credit card, or you can add a prepay balance. It's up to you. I'm going to click on Pay using credit card. So once you're done, we click on Pay Now. The payment is approved, and now you can go into the dashboard, and you see that the form has been submitted and the scheduled date for it to be fully submitted. Here under Action, I can click on the little I and get a little bit more details on this. I can select the specific forms and do multiple actions, which is really interesting. So I can actually download the PDF from here if I want to. And I can just do let's say the recipient's copy and click on Submit. And that will allow you to download the physical PDF. You also get to see whether it's scheduled or filed, if the USPS has been requested, if the email has been sent, if the state has been filed or not, what the submit date is, and what the schedule date is. You can click on these 3 little dots here if you want to view the PDF, edit, so if you notice that you made a mistake and it's generally within the first 30 minutes to hour of submitting it, you can click on block submission, and it kind of sort of attempts to cancel the submission, and then Tax 1099 will let you know whether or not the attempt to block the submission happened. It's not the same thing as making an edit. Like if you actually need to submit an amendment, that's an entirely different process. But if you haven't submitted yet, you can edit anything that you need to file before you send it. But generally speaking, once it's been submitted, you will have to block it before you do anything else. And you can also view the PDF straight from here. And there's your PDF. So if you want to print it, keep it for your records, there's your physical 1099. And you're not going to print this and physically mail it to the IRS. That's the purpose of using Tax 1099. So you don't have to do any manual processes. So you kept this in your records. You can manually email this to the contractor if whatever happened, the email system didn't work or the physical mailing didn't work. You can hand it to them manually in an envelope, whatever you want. You have a physical PDF for your records that you can print or hand manually. Now let's talk about bulk importing 1099s. So for example, in the example that we just did, we did create a single form, but if you go to bulk import, and you can actually bulk import the information from payers that you're creating new and also payers that are already in your database. So either way, you can bulk import. So we're going to click on Next. Then we're going to download the template right here. It says XLS, that's your Excel format template. You're going to open that template. Here's your template. The nice thing about this particular template is whatever is in red is your required information. You would have to put that in there. And then whatever is in white is information that it wouldn't be required. Now, in this case, you're going to have to go through and see what information that you need to collect to fill this out. And again, you could be having this information maybe in another spreadsheet somewhere. You're going to be copying and pasting in pieces, or you can fill it out manually in here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out this information so I can bulk import. So I filled out my spreadsheet. Maybe I copy and paste the data from different spreadsheets, but essentially I have everything already filled in a spreadsheet, so I don't have to enter it manually. And again, this could be current tax recipients that you have in there, or new recipients, which is great. So you can do both. So we're going to click on save on that, and then we're going to come in here and drag and drop or pick the file. Then it'll say file successfully uploaded. And after it's been uploaded, we click on next. Then it's going to ask you to map. So if you use the exact template, the nice thing is you won't have to do a whole bunch of mapping. But if you use your own spreadsheet that contains your own field names and that sort of thing, then you're going to have to sit there and do mapping for each one. But the nice thing about using the template is that it just all happens automatically. So you click on next and there's no additional mapping that needs to be done. Okay, and then now you see all the 1099s that we imported from the spreadsheet with all the amounts or the social security numbers of all the recipients. And then we click on next. And then all the records have been imported. So then at this point, then you decide if you want to email them or physically mail them, if you want to do TIN matching. They don't have, I didn't put any email addresses on them individually, which is why it gives you this error. But if you actually go in there and change the email address or add an email address for each one, then you'll be able to do e-delivery. And then you can manually choose any of the actions that you want to do here. If you want to start submitting the forms now, or take any other actions like just calculate the fee. So if you want to just get the fee calculation without actually having to submit the form, you get the workflow format so you understand where all the fees are coming from based on how we do it. And of course, if we add verification, it's going to add to the fee as well. And you get to see a preview of what it's going to look like prior to submitting. So you get that option as well to import everything from a spreadsheet, which is a wonderful thing. On this screen, it's also worth seeing that there's a couple of really cool features. You can select all your 1099s and you can click on change schedule date. So if you want to file this at the very last day of January, let's say I want to do January 2025, and I want to do the very last day, the 31st, and then click on update. Then we can schedule all that stuff for that. Okay, so of course you probably want to do this a couple days earlier just in case. So you would do something like the 29th, but that kind of gives you some time to be able to do that. So once the filing season starts, you'll be able to change those dates. And also if you want an Excel backup of what you did, you click on export to Excel and you get your spreadsheet. So if you also want to have not just the PDF records, but you want to have the Excel records of what you filed, that stuff becomes really, really useful for you to have in your records. So I'm going to go back into the dashboard and kind of see all the information in the dashboard. Notice that we have the very first form that we created by hand, and then the 10 that we imported afterwards. It shows up as two separate batches per se, and then you can go into each and every one of them, and you can also download the forms straight from here, which you have the option to do that too. So you can, as I mentioned earlier, you can do one by one, you can do a whole bunch as a group, you can import them as a group. All that stuff is very useful depending on your specific workflow. Okay, everyone is going to have a different workflow when it comes to gathering the documents, putting the stuff in Tax 1099, hitting submit, and tracking the submittal status on them. But once you click on download, it downloads a zip file, which I really, really love. And you have all your individual 1099s in one file, which makes it really, really awesome because you have it all grouped into one folder, very, very clean, with every single document having the actual recipient's name as part of it and the last 4 digits of the Social Security. So absolutely awesome to work with, to download those batches of the 1099s after you have created them. So let's go into reports. We're going to click on reports and kind of see what we have. So we're going to select, we can do our payers report, and then we can pick the date range. We can select the information that we want to see, click on export to Excel, and eventually that's what it is. It's basically a spreadsheet of the batches that you have. So if you want to have also the batches themselves into spreadsheets, you can do that. And there's all sorts of different reports you can do. We can do recipient reports as well that go into a lot more detail. We'll pick our companies and the date ranges, and we click on export, and then we get to see all the reports from the report section too. So you have the ability almost essentially to export any data that you have put in there at some point. And again, you can go across multiple payers. You can go for one specific one. If you want to look at a report of all your TIN matching, report of the status of your W-9s, the unsubmitted reports, submission history, all that stuff, you have tons of flexibility when it comes to reports. Now we're going to go deeper into a bit of more complex workflow, a more common one, which is when you're importing your data from, let's say, QuickBooks. Okay, so we're going to click on imports, then we're going to click in QuickBooks Online, and we're going to click on Connect to QuickBooks, and we're going to use this to log in into our existing QuickBooks Online account. And then we're going to pick which QuickBooks Online account we want to sync up with Tax 1099, because instead of importing through spreadsheets or whatever it is, I can essentially just pick here which companies I'm going to bring the information from. So I happen to be an accountant and I have tons of clients. So I can pick which of my clients I want to file through here, and then just click on Next and Connect. And you would do that for each account separately. And after you connect, you're going to see all the companies that you connect from QuickBooks into Tax 1099 connected in here. And then simply from here, all you're going to choose is the tax year that you want to do the 1099s for, and then the forms that you want to process. So in this case, I want to just start with 1099 NEC, and then you choose whether or not you want to include journal entries in the calculation or just natural transactions. And also, if you have inactive vendors, you're going to choose whether or not you wanted to grab from inactive vendors. So these two, usually we're going to check these two. This is very common, but there might be situations where you wouldn't. That might be something you may want to look into in your bookkeeping and your accounting, maybe work with your accountant to double check if these things are relevant. Then you're going to click on import to start the connection. And then once you start the connection, the purpose of this is to bring in all the transactions or all the totals and report them in the form for you. So we're going to pick which boxes are going to apply. So box 1 is the most common, non-employee compensation. So we're going to pick that one, and we're going to tell it which accounts in our chart of accounts are connected to that. So when we pay these subcontractors via a check or a bill or whichever payment form that we pay them, wire transfer, whatever, what account did we choose when we categorize that transaction? And depending on what account I choose, I may want to include or not include certain accounts. So for example, subcontracted labor, 1099 labor, subcontractor, contracted expenses. Accounts that have names like that are probably the ones that you'll be choosing here. And typically when you pay them or you reimburse them, let's say for travel or for materials, you typically exclude those. So you don't want to include those. Okay? It all depends on how you're doing your accounting. So we'll pick that, and then if box 2 applies, then you would check that and then pick which one would be for box 2. And then if box 3 applies, you pick which one applies for box 3. Box 2 and box 3 are very not that commonly used. Mostly it's box 1. That's really what most people are here to do, is to report box 1 on the 1099 NEC. So then we're going to click on Next. Okay, and then it's going to download all the contractors, so to speak, that were in the list as subcontractors and the total amounts that match. Now, how does it know, or how does it pick and choose from all the expenditures? Well, it has to do with the account that you pick. So in this case, since we picked that subcontractor account, it only grabbed from vendor names that use that subcontractor account. Now I'm going to go into QuickBooks real quick, and I run on expenses by vendor summary. And the way it knows that Carlos and Mary are contractors that you should give a 1099 to is because that's how they're marked on their settings. And also the dollar amounts, they should match. So let's go back in here and see. So Carlos is 12,000 flat and Mary is 80,970. Let's switch over here, and it looks like Mary is correct, but Carlos is not. There's an additional 348.68 that are not being reported. Let's open and check that. Let's see what the case may be. And let's look at the transactions. And let's see if it's obvious by looking at the transaction. Yeah, it is pretty obvious. So 348.68 is a travel reimbursement. So example that I was saying, it's only including the subcontracted labor because we told it to only include that. If you would have told it to include both, then it would have added the two, and it would have used the 12,300 or something instead of the 12,000 flat. Now, going back to QuickBooks real quick, just go back to the last report. Notice that there's Robert Smith here for $5,000. Why isn't that being reported in Tax 1099? Well, with QuickBooks Online particularly, it's something that you kind of have to know, is when you create vendors in QuickBooks Online, you have to tell it, and this is Robert Smith, right? So we have to tell Robert Smith here when we edit it, we have to tell it whether or not this one has a little checkbox for track 1099 payments. So because this one's missing, it's included on the other ones, it's particularly excluding those. So if I enter that and enter a social security number here or whatever, of course this is not real, but you enter the social security number or the business tax ID and track 1099s and then save. So if you save it like that, and then you go back to tax 1099, and then we'll kind of go backwards and see if we can do the import again. So we'll grab it here, pick our tax here, and do a 1099 NEC, check these two, and do the import again. So it's going to refresh the import. It should now include those payments. Now, one thing I didn't check is if that account was being used in QuickBooks Online. Okay, it looks like it was. So there you go. So now we have the three here. So that's the principle. Like, it needs to be marked as a 1099able contractors into QuickBooks. And then this little reds means that information could be missing. So the little warning sign tells you here that we haven't yet verified all those details, right? So you can actually edit those and click here at edit. And then we'll click on submit. Actually, let's just click on the vendor itself. And then, okay, what's missing here? Okay, the tax ID is missing. So we'll enter the tax ID. Okay, of course, those are made up numbers. And then you have to have an address. Okay. And then once you finish entering the information, it puts it in green saying that it's good data. Now, it didn't verify that the address was real or the tax ID was real. It didn't really verify that, but it just double checked that the information was complete. Same thing here. The payer tax ID could be missing. So this is the actual business name. Okay, that's there. Okay, I think that's there. Let's see if there's a state version of it. No, so we click on submit. Maybe you just have to click on that, and then it maybe still sitting yellow because you haven't verified all the other ones. But anyway, so once you finish selecting all the ones that you want to file for, the next step will be to click on next. And we do have to, I like this about Tax 99 that it won't actually allow you. So let's clean up and finish putting addresses for this. Perfect. So now that everything is green, that means we're good to go. Now we should be okay. So then we're going to click on next. And on the next page, it's just kind of having you double check. Okay, so it's got the last 4 digits of the social security or tax ID, the name, the amount, so you can check one more time. Since there's no email address on file, it cannot do e-delivery. Of course, I'm going to strongly recommend that you do send them via email. That way you don't have to literally mail them. You do have the choice to mail them here. And if you mail them, you will pay a little bit extra. And then the TIN matching will actually verify that the name and the tax ID matches 1-to-1. Now, I generally recommend to do an export into Excel. That way you have a backup of what you just did. And then the next thing here under bulk actions, you can calculate the fee before you actually file. Okay, it tells you exactly how much the whole thing is going to be. So this 3 1099s is going to be a total of $14.25, and it's because it's mailing them. If you were doing e-delivery, the fee would go down significantly, and of course the fee goes up if you do TIN matching. So that would be the last step, and then from here you can do submit for this taxpayer, and it will do the next step, which is filing the form for you. You do have to put your credit card on file, click on apply or add balances, and then you would be filing immediately from there. Last thing I want to show you is the different plans available. So I've been showing you with the free version, not the free version, but the one that you don't pay anything, you just pay per filing. But here, when you click on your profile on the top right, and you click on upgrade plan, you can choose a plan that is mostly focused for those folks that are doing a lot more volume. And if you click here where it says compare plans, so we scroll down here to the comparisons, and then we have everything that's included. And then what you get extra with the paid versions is you get a single sign-on system, you have teams. So if you have multiple people working in Tax 1099 and you want to track who does what, and then you have the enterprise edition that's going to have more features like workflow management, so approval systems. So if you want to have, for example, one user create the vendors, another user prepare the 1099s, and then one user at the very end approve it, you can have that as well. But again, you will have the same exact cost per form and the exact same performance and the exact same capabilities, even in the Essential Edition. It's just worth mentioning that accounting professionals are probably going to be on the eFile Plus system or the Enterprise system if they want additional users and user approval workflow type of systems. And probably the most important note on pricing for those that are accounting professionals or have a lot of 1099s to file, there is a tiered price system. You pay as low as 65 cents per form if you do up to 1,000 forms. And if you got to do more than 1,000 forms, you contact them directly and they give you custom pricing, which is awesome. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that your 1099 tax filing season and any other forms you have to file goes well. And hopefully this video was useful. I will put links in the description below. And the nice folks from ZenWorks told me that if I make a video for them, they'll create a coupon for my audience. So I put the coupon code down there as well. So if you use that coupon, you get a little bit of a discount. It's cheap enough, but I think every little bit helps anyway. So thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.